Welcome everyone to today's Insight Group webinar. Today we're going to be talking with StubHub and hearing how they engage with their customers on social. Over the next hour, we'll cover building trusted relationships with your customers on social, unifying digital channels into a consistent platform, and responding to customer inquiries and comments at scale. And I'm sure much more. I'm pleased to be joined by guest moderators today who will be leading the discussion, and that is Dave Evans. Dave is the Vice President of Social Strategy for Lithium Technologies, who are one of the leading providers for social care. I first met Dave at a conference a few years ago, and I always find his presentations insightful. Joining Dave is Mary Hill. Mary is the Customer Service and Social Media Manager at StubHub. StubHub has over 700,000 fans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm looking forward to hearing their road to success stories and Mary's secrets for building customer loyalty and just how her team manages thousands of fan inquiries on social. Now, before we get started with today's discussion, I just want to remind you that today's webinar is also interactive, so I urge you to type your own questions into the chat box. And we'll be sure to incorporate these into discussion throughout the webinar, so the sooner you ask, the better. So that's in the chat box in the webinar software. We're also using the hashtag CSMNY, which stands for the Corporate Social Media Summit New York. So once again, that's hashtag CSMNY, which you can see at the right of the slide. So again, any questions or additional thoughts, be sure to tweet away. So a nice start to the webinar is to gauge the audience with our first poll, which should be coming onto your screens now. You can only select one answer, and I'll give you around 15 seconds to do so. To what extent do you understand customer loyalty at your company? So the first answer is completely, to a large extent, to some extent, or not at all. So if you can vote on that now, I can see those results are just coming in. So I'll give you 5 seconds or more to vote. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. So those results should be coming onto your screens now. So I guess quite surprisingly, we have 9% of people who do completely understand customer loyalty. So that's great. We'll definitely get them in for a future webinar. 42% to a large extent, and slightly more to some extent, and 2% of you not at all. So I guess I'd like to hand straight over to Dave, our moderator today. Dave, are these results surprising to you?
I'm here. And
oh,
hey,
Dave,
Aaron.
great.
Yeah,
great to have you joining us, Dave.
Cool, thank you. I'm just looking at these results. They are a little bit surprising. I really expected about half of the people to say completely, right? So I'm actually really kind of impressed by the candid honesty here. Those 2% that said not at all, definitely call me afterwards. We need to talk. And Mary, I want to introduce you and get started here. Obviously, we're thrilled to have Mary join us from StubHub. Just a fantastic organization. Certainly understands customer loyalty, customer passion, and that kind of thing. Mary, before we get started, if you could just describe your role at StubHub, just for people who may not be familiar with the many things that you actually do. And then I've got a couple of questions, and we'll dive right in.
Sure, sounds good. So I'm Mary Hill, and I've actually been with StubHub for about 5 years now. Originally, when I started, I was overseeing customer service for Salt Lake City and East Granby. And then about a year after I started, I took over our social media team, which at that time was all of one person, and have undertaken the role of building that team out, growing that base, getting followers to be loyal to us and respond to us in a more positive light, because when social first started, we had a lot of, how much people hated us. So we've really turned around the trust and loyalty in the brand and just how people perceive the brand. So that's been a big focus of mine over the last 5 years.
Excellent. And then to follow up on what Aaron mentioned, for those of you in the audience, if you have questions, if you are logged into the webinar, with the screen up, you can use the chat function and just post questions directly. And if you are on either called in or something like that, then use Twitter and CSMNY, Corporate Social Media New York. Just post your question, tag it with that hashtag, and we will see it, as well as any other comment that you want to make. So we'll be following those as well. So let's dive in. And if you're driving, please pull over first. That's my only request. Let's be safe. Hey, so Mary, so over the past 5 years, as you just alluded to, obviously you've put a huge effort into redesigning your social strategy, right? Can you share the goals other than the obvious? I mean, so there was a brand challenge, obviously, and you sought to correct that. But more specifically, the goals you were trying to achieve, maybe some of the ways that you quantified outcomes, knew that you were on a success path. How you justified this or kept support going internally, those kinds of things. And then bring us up to date on the current mission for your team, and maybe just lead us into how customer service maybe has evolved during this whole transformation during this time.
Sure. So when I first started, we wanted to build the base first and foremost and create a more positive light on our brand. So we spent a lot of time focusing on engaging with people so that we could create more followers. We've actually seen our Twitter growth grow 250% over the last 5 years, and our Facebook growth grow 40%. Twitter is our main handle, our main channel at this point on social. 90% of our fans come to us via Twitter instead of Facebook, whereas when I first started, it was mainly Facebook and then Twitter. Twitter kind of took us by storm a couple years ago. So we focused a lot on engaging in education so that we could really teach people about what our company was about, and that no, we're not scalpers, and what we actually do and how the marketplace works. And we saw that by doing that, people started to believe us. And when we showed that we were true to our word and we were going to fix their problems, people started to come to our defense. So that happened over the last few years, and now it's just been building upon that and really just defining that we are here to support our fans, we are going to make things right for you, and we want to engage with you on the channel of your choice. So now we've become a company that really wants to be social first, and that's kind of our next strategy that we're moving into. We want to service as many customers that want to be serviced on social, so we have a full service team that is able to do that, where once it comes into social, we take care of it there. We're also working on building a fan community so that our fans can help each other, and we will moderate that community as well. So we're working on a few different things to just keep increasing the volume that is going to social so that we can keep the fans in the space that they're choosing.
Hey, that's really great. So you mentioned engagement a couple of times, and just for clarity, I know sometimes when we are heavy into social media marketing, we talk about engagement as if engagement means clicking on something, and when we're in social customer care, we talk about engagement in perhaps a deeper context, meaning some kind of conversation has gone on, some kind of repeat interaction. Where people have actually worked together, maybe to resolve an issue or something like that. Can you talk about the difference between those two and the ways in which you think about engagement on your outreach campaigns versus the ways that you think about engagement in your care context?
Sure. So mainly my team is in charge of response for care. So engagement for us is actually talking to our customers and not necessarily doing anything specifically to resolve a customer issue or assist them in any way. It could be just talking about the band that they just bought tickets to and they're tweeting us about it. Just engaging in a way that creates a positive light. One example, there was a marketing push notification that went out a short time ago that kind of gives a good example. It was meant to be fun and engaging, and it was a notification that went to everybody's phone that said, hey, you need to get out more. How about this show in your area? And on Twitter, what we saw was that people didn't like that. They felt like, yeah, thanks, StubHub. It was a very sarcastic response. Thanks for telling me I don't have a life. So what my team decided to do with that was, instead of ignoring it and just letting it kind of die out, like, oops, people didn't take that too well, we actually dived in and responded to those people and said, hey, we do it because we care. We know you get out. We made jokes about it and engaged with the fans, and they came back really positive. They thought it was fun. They thought it was funny, and it kind of turned that whole campaign around. To us, that's engagement. When it comes to marketing engagement, marketing is a completely separate team. We are a company that has marketing separate. So while we do connect with marketing on campaigns that are running, we give input as to what's trending and what are the hot topics right now. They do run their own campaigns, and they do, engage with those fans in a way of, how many clicks are they getting, how many retweets, that type of thing. We on the back end kind of moderate that in a way of, if we see campaigns kind of going off the wrong way, we can come in and kind of save that and engage with those fans.
Excellent. Hey, so I want to quickly hit one quick question, then I want to jump into empowerment and your social customer care team. But just quickly, when you build your team, what are the qualities and capabilities that are most crucial? Just let's quickly touch on that, and then I want to jump into how you empower those people.
Sure. So for me, I think it's really important that they understand social media language in that space. They don't necessarily have to be trained in social, but they have to be comfortable in the fact that this is the most public channel they will ever speak on, and any mistake they make is seen. So we need them to be able to feel very comfortable in that space, because people that do not don't do well there. I see a lot of colleagues of mine from other companies that are like, oh, well, I can just take my top performing customer service rep and put them in social. No, you can't. It depends. It depends on if they're comfortable in that space and if you can teach them to do that particular job well. So I think that's super important. Being able to pick up on things that are truly urgent in social, and when someone's calling your bluff, which is kind of a special skill, I think is also another quality that's important. They need to be exceptional in the quality of their engagement with customers. They, our staff, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, they are required to be better in multiple categories for what they're gold on than anyone else in the company. They receive more training. Whereas in part of the company, they have 1 score for customer service for quality. The score is higher for social because we expect the very best. They need to be able to think outside the box for a resolution. It can't just be because people are coming to social, we give them money or we give them tickets back or whatever. We need to come up with creative solutions that's not also giving away the farm. I will say grammar and spelling has never been so important, so if you have somebody who's not good at grammar and spelling, that's not a good fit. And people who really and truly can be in it with the customer. For us, it's extremely important because of our business model and because of the fact that we really care about being engaged with our fans. We need people who can actually make their emotions be seen in writing, and that takes a special kind of skill.
So, Mary, you said something really interesting. When someone comes to you on social, I think one of the knee-jerk reactions is, what do we give them, right? And, in fact, a lot of times they're seeking resolution. They're not necessarily seeking something, or people might be seeking something, and in fact, there is no resolution. They're just seeking something, and it becomes incumbent on your team to sort of sort out the difference and understand what to do. How do you empower and set up your social agents so that they know what they can do and what they can't do, when they can offer a ticket or some kind of spiff, or when, hey, look, we have a policy about this, and we just need to agree to disagree. Maybe we have a policy and you have violated the policy. Therefore, we're taking the action that we are. How do you empower them to make those calls?
Sure. We obviously have policies in place, but I keep them very loose, and we're able to do what we need to do in order to fix the problem. Once something comes to social media, we want to do a couple of things. Yes, we are there to make sure the customer is taken care of, but on top of it, that team is responsible for brand protection. So now this person's in a public space, and we need to protect our brand, and we also need to make sure this customer is taken care of. So my staff have free reign to do what they need to do to fix the problem. We do have certain dollar limits, of course, if we're talking about giving away money, that they will make a call to me first. So what we take a look at is a couple of different things. We make it a one-stop shop. We make sure that whatever comes into social media never leaves social media. Those reps are trained to do every part of the business, and if they don't know what to do, so say it's a payments question, for example, and they're like, oh, I'm not really quite sure what to do, they reach out to that team, we get the answer that we need, and they handle it. Because once something's in social, I don't want that customer to have to go somewhere else or wait for a call back because they didn't choose a phone call. And also, if we put them to another team and we wait for that team to respond, then they're going to be tweeting at us again, and we don't want that either. People that come to social expect their response immediately. That's why they chose that channel. So we want to make sure that everyone coming in, their questions can be answered on social, and we take care of them right there. The other thing that we really look at is utilizing the very best of the best for the team. We want to make sure that we have people that can think outside the box, that can use common sense, that don't get nervous in this space, and that we give them continual training to keep them up to speed on everything that changes with the company. This also helps to reduce contacts to other channels. We're having people that can help them, and we're making sure that they don't have to leave this channel. When it comes to, okay, you have people who now they want something, we need to make a choice. If it's the right thing to do, we will always just do it. It doesn't matter. If it's $10,000 and it's the right thing to do for that customer, they just take care of the customer. If we have a customer who we have taken care of them, but they're still very upset about the experience, then we need to make a choice. And a lot of times we look at many things. We look at how loyal of a customer they are. We do look at how influential they are. We look at what happened in the experience. Did we do something to cause them to have a bad experience, or are they really just being over the top with what they're looking for? And then we make a decision, and then at that point, then we stick by it.
Excellent. Hey, so I want to give you sort of a two-part question here. But before I do, I want to remind people that are listening or watching the webinar, you can ask questions through the chat, and you can also tweet us using the hashtag, just tweet and as normal, and then include the hashtag CSM Corporate Social Media NY New York, CSM NY, and we'll get those questions. So I see some questions coming in, so definitely keep the questions coming in. Mary, can you tell us about challenges that you have faced, maybe that have prompted you to either change a policy, change a process, something like that, seek a new solution for social support, those kinds of things. And then at the same time, given that you're reacting and responding to customers, both in helping them resolve issues, but also in changing your own practices. I remember the context for this whole thing is the amazing transformation that took place with your team and others at StubHub over the past 5 or so years. How do you now use that to build brand loyalty at StubHub?
Sure. So to answer the first question, the challenges we faced in the beginning was that a lot of it stemmed to the tool that we were using. A lot of companies utilize a tool that marketing was using, and customer service kind of tags along onto that. Same here. We were using a tool that marketing was using that didn't work for us. It wasn't built for customer service. So I went to our director and I said, listen, if we want to build what we want to build in social and be customer centric and be customer first and social first, I need a tool that's built for customer service. So we went out and found the tool that we wanted, which was Lithium. And once on that tool, we were able to build what we wanted, to utilize what we want in that tool, and make it very customized and personalized to what we needed to search for and monitor for our customers. So that was kind of our turning point in being able to use fewer people, because that was the other thing is, executive sponsorship wasn't quite there yet. They wanted to see what social could become, but weren't ready to put the headcount behind it yet. So I had to do a lot with a very few amount of headcount, and I needed to have the right tool in place to do that. So that's how I would answer that question.
Okay, that's really, yeah, and then go ahead with impact to your organization.
To speak to brand loyalty, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
So the way we worked on building brand loyalty is we don't use a template. We are very personalized in every response. Nothing drives me more crazy than if I'm looking at our feed and I see the same response, and I've really trained the team not to do that. I want every single interaction to be personalized to that customer and their need. I want them to know that they're speaking with a human being on the other side. We want to make every customer feel special, and to do that, you need to be engaging with them on a specific question that they have. You want to make sure if they're talking about their favorite bands that they're going to and there's a problem with their order, we like that band too. We want to be a part of that band. So even if it's not my favorite band, you want to engage with them at that level. really being in it with the customer. We really need to show our empathy and our compassion to make sure that they understand that we are here for them, that we're going to make sure we take care of them, and we be the brand. We want to make sure that everyone understands that we are raging fans just like they are, and we're going to make sure that we take care of them.
Awesome. So I want to really connect a couple of dots here. Over the last couple questions, we've talked about the nature and the way that you guys see engagement, certainly through customer care. We've talked about how to set up and empower agents. Clearly, you guys have done an amazing job with that. We've talked about some of the challenges and your need to continuously respond, to change, to adapt, both to what's going on culturally and, to respond to just what goes on in terms of technology as we move, as more and more people adopt mobile. Some of this sounds so basic, but it really does start to change, I think, the way that we expect brands to interact, and therefore the way that we ourselves interact, when we're dealing with things like tickets, like events, like these things that are important to us. You just talked about this idea of sort of losing the template of having agents. Now, if we put some of these things together, having agents that are sufficiently trained, sufficiently empowered in an organization that has a dynamic nature to it, and the agents are actually empowered to do the things that they need to do. When you talk about sort of going off script, about losing the template, being able to do the things that somebody needs to do to make this response really personal. Music and fan enjoyment, certainly for any event, certainly is a very, very personal thing. Whether it's a sporting event, something like that, people get super, super passionate about the things that you're enabling them to experience. Can you share some examples that kind of connect this up, maybe a story or two that really show how highly trained agents in a dynamic environment were able to, within the box of business objectives, right? My point earlier about it's not just giving away, something's wrong, let us give you some front row seats for, you don't have a business at that point, right? So how do you stay in the box of business objectives, if you will, and then at the same time sort of flex out enough to really be able to meet and greet and surprise and delight customers and do the things that you need to do to achieve the results that you guys have achieved? A couple of stories would be great here.
Sure. Actually, on this slide, I can tell you a story about this tweet in particular. This little boy, Joe, he was actually someone who is a lifelong Cubs fan. He lives in Chicago, and he really wanted to go to the World Series. And his parents couldn't afford it. We received a tweet actually the day of Game 3 last year talking about this little boy who happens to be fighting cancer, and he wanted to get into the game. We saw it come in. My team reached out to me because they were like, we have to get him in. Like, this is what we need to do for this little boy. He wants to see this game, and this could be the last game because the Cubs were losing at that time. And we knew it was the right thing to do, and we had tickets on hand. So we reached out to the dad. We met them down there. We made sure that he got in. They had an amazing time, and we all joked around that, Joe was the good luck that night because the Cubs came back and went on to win the entire series. And things like that make my team and the entire company feel amazing because they get to do these great things for people like this. But also, obviously, we now have fans for life and people that will talk about what a great experience we brought them. And we didn't have to spend a ton of money. Those are tickets that we had because there was an issue with someone else's order, something had happened. Let's go make this right for somebody else.
What an amazing story, and it's so wonderful that you can engage that way, and that your team actually sort of saw it that way and chose to engage that way, because I'm sure there were other options, right? It really speaks a lot about the passion within the organization for what it is that you guys do. So, picking up on that a little bit, the next question that I've got for you, it's one that I know all brands have, right? When to engage, when to step away, when to, we can resolve this issue. This person is just a dedicated complainer. How do you sort out the difference? We're going to take this one on, or we just have to, as I said earlier, agree to disagree. we've got a policy, we've got an issue, we've got this thing, it's whatever it is, we got to just step out on this one. How do you choose that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So understanding the tone of your customer. This particular tweet is actually one that I was referencing in the beginning of the call, where we sent out the SMS notification, and people really didn't like that, but we were able to turn it around. So taking the tone of your customer and understanding, am I going to be able to fix this problem, or do I need to take this private because they're just so irate that this is not going to go well publicly, or are they saying such vulgar things that we just don't respond at all? We have certain rules surrounding, inappropriate handle names, people that are swearing. If they have a customer service problem, we obviously will take them privately and still help them, but we really don't want our brand associated with those things, right? So if someone is just blasting us for no reason other than they hate who we are, then that's the time to not engage. So there's certain scenarios where you don't engage. It's very rare, but there is some. Also understanding you need to do your research. So in the 6 to 10 minute response time that we have, within that time, that team needs to be looking as far as they can into this customer's problem. Can they find them in our CRM tool? Look at their Twitter handle. Look at their Facebook page. What do we know about them? What can we find out about them prior to even engaging with them to understand the problem? How influential are they? We need to know that right away. So that's part of doing your research before you can even answer. Knowing when humor can be used. Sometimes it's kind of a silly problem, and you're going to fix the problem, and then you can kind of joke about it with them, and they appreciate that, So we have to know when to do that. Knowing your influencers, paying very close attention to those people with the high clout scores so that those people have the ability to do a significant amount of damage very, very quickly. And you have to be aware of speaking to them and knowing how swiftly you need to handle that problem based on how influential they are. We want to handle all customer problems, but if I have someone who has 3 followers and I have someone who has 500,000 followers, I need to handle the 500,000 follower first so that I can quiet that problem more quickly.
So Mary, a couple things, and if you can't get into detail in this, I certainly understand, but if you can, I think it'd be really helpful. You talked about issues around certain kinds of speech. For example, hate speech, inappropriate remarks, threatening remarks, harassment, things like that. Does your team have a clear policy on, look, if it crosses this line, and it's not a judgment call, it's like, here's the line, right? And if it crosses this, we are empowered to block this person, right? This has no place in our content stream. Versus, okay, this person may be upset and they may be saying some ugly things, but they don't cross that line over into, I think, what we would sort of universally consider to be unacceptable in any kind of a public forum. So the first part of the question is, do you guys have a clear policy on that backs agents up, or do you obviously you treat this, but do you treat it in some other way? And then related to that, as these kinds of things take place, what kind of fallout do you get both within your team, if someone's particularly abusive to an agent, for example, something like that? Do you have something in place that says, by the way, if another agent picks up this conversation, can they see the prior history so that they know, okay, wait a second, I'm dealing with somebody who's being all nice now, but look at the interchange that they just had with my colleague, right? Those kinds of things. How do you manage this internally?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a written policy as to when we would ban someone. It's very rare. We generally do not have to do it. We also have a policy on when to engage, when not to engage. We have written policy on everything, but we really do keep it very gray because I want to engage with as many people as I possibly can, even if it's borderline, right? So my team will come to me. They'll ask the question first, like, we're concerned about this person. What do you think? When it comes to someone who is being nice now, but there's a whole huge thread where they weren't, we can see that. You know, we have that ability in our tool to be able to see all of their conversation history so that we understand if this is someone who's a habitual problem or if this is just an angry customer that's having a really rough day.
Cool, thank you. And one of there's a bunch of questions that we're getting, but one that we keep getting, we've gotten it now from actually a bunch of people. They want to know about the tools and so on that you're using. And in asking this question clearly, as a representative from Lithium and as the sponsor of the podcast, obviously you're using Lithium Social Media Manager. So I don't want the self-serving answer. So you use that for some of your core engagement. But what other tools? How do you integrate with other things? What else? And I mean, feel free to talk about whatever you want. But I think the bigger answer is what are all of the systems that you have in place in order to enable the kinds of things that you're talking about?
Sure. So Lithium is our predominant tool, right? Lithium allows us to be able to engage with all of our customers. It prioritizes us with our queue. It gives us their clout score. We obviously go to Twitter and Facebook direct when we want to look at profiles, but it also allows all that history to be stored there. We have all the reporting features right within Lithium. And then the only other tool that they really need to use is our CRM, which is our system to house our customer data. But as a social team, we do everything through Lithium.
Excellent. And for those that were asking that question, I would underscore the importance of the integration between whatever tools you happen to be using, the integration between your social engagement tools and your CRM systems. In some of the workshops that I lead with customers, and so on, we have case studies where we talk about the importance of knowing who it is that you're talking to, not just the follower count, so that you can deliver the appropriate response. Clearly, things like follower counts matter when you're dealing with someone. I mean, if this is a highly influential or highly public person, a celebrity or something like that, you need to know that, right? At the same time, if this is someone who repeatedly uses your product and is a longtime customer or is in an elite program, whatever it happens to be, that is really good information for an agent to know. And so, as with StubHub, this idea of integration or knowledge through the CRM system, in addition to some of the public or profile-based information that's available through the engagement tools directly, you want to make sure that those things are hooked together. And then I think kudos to you, Mary, for having written policies on things. When it comes to agent behaviors and what they're really comfortable doing and what they can be trained to do and so on, the fact that you have these written down and that you train for this kind of stuff, I think is one of the underlying factors that directly drives your success in this. I want to move on a little bit. We seem to be seeing more and more crises, kind of, if you will, emerging. And by the way, sometimes crisis can be a good thing in the sense that, if you, for example, at StubHub were to suddenly announce, hey, we have front row tickets for every event, or 50-yard line seats for every event, or, right in front of the goal box or something like that, and they're available for, $1, you would clearly be overrun with traffic. Right? At that point, it's just going to start pouring in. So when you have these crises, either because of a negative event or a positive event, right? They're not always negative events. How do you guys actually? How do you handle this? How do you manage it? What mode does the team go into?
Sure, absolutely. So the biggest thing you want to do is find the problem quickly. When something arises and you're starting to see a flood your queue, you need to find the source immediately and get to that problem, that the main person that you need to talk to. Depending on what it is, if it's something that I know is going to hit media, if it's something that I'm concerned, for the name for the brand itself, then I immediately align with the PR team. I will let PR know, this is what I'm going to do for this person from a customer service perspective. Here's what we know to have happened. Here's what I'm afraid of happening. And then PR immediately starts planning for any media coverage that they need to take care of. You also want to think about how do you engage with this customer, with this person that is creating this problem? Do you engage with them publicly? How influential are they, and how are they responding? Because I do find that there are two types of influencers. There are influencers who are very down to earth and they have a problem and they want their problem resolved, and when you resolve their problem, they're fine. You have other influencers who use their influence to just keep pushing. They essentially want you to give them the moon, and it's not something we can feasibly do. Those people are very difficult to deal with publicly because they will continue to bash you until you resolve that problem to their liking, which sometimes is not a feasible resolution. When I have someone who, purchased a ticket that was mislisted on our site because the person who listed the ticket at the wrong price, and it's a Super Bowl ticket, wants me to give them that ticket for $7, and it's a $40,000 ticket, I can't do that. So we have to come to some sort of resolution in the middle. You definitely don't want to be afraid to admit when the brand made a mistake. I do that quicker than not because people recognize that we're human. We made a mistake. We took care of it. This is what we're doing. A lot of times that puts out the fire quicker than anything else. And not being afraid to do what's right by the customer as well. So making sure you take care of the customer, admitting your fault, and moving on. There will come a point when you need to accept that you've done it all and you need to let that fire burn out. We've done everything and people just keep hammering us on it. We've made the public announcement. We've talked to the person. They keep commenting on it. Then you need to step away and monitor it and let it die over the next day or so.
Very cool. Very cool. Very nice method for handling that. And again, the clarity around the way in which you do this and the way in which you see and resolve the issues. I hope everybody else is finding this as useful as certainly as I am. We did have one question come in. I'll give the question and my answer to it, and then Mary, I'd love your comment on it as well. The question was the sort of optimal number or the maximum number of social channels that a brand should be using, maintaining, and so on. My quick sort of almost non-answer, but I think it is kind of the answer. It's the number of channels that your customers are using in the context of the number of channels that you can adequately maintain. So if your customers are sort of everywhere, it's great if you can be everywhere, right? I mean, I see more and more, certainly internationally, I see more and more relatively obscure or sort of regional differences, whether it's Snapchat or WhatsApp or sort of any tool, Instagram, any tool at all that has the ability for the brand to be present and the ability for the customer to send some kind of a reasonably secure message to the brand. Those become conduits for customer service questions. So part of the answer certainly is where your customers are is where you need to be, but then you also need to factor into this. If you have a handful of people on your team, you need to make some choices. If you have a large team and you have some kind of sophistication in routing or channel assignment or things like that, sure, you can take on more. Mary, what's your quick take on that? And then I want to move on to some examples.
Sure. So I also agree that I want to be wherever our customers want to be. I do feel that there's certain channels that are more appropriate than others. Obviously, Snapchat would not be my favorite channel to answer customer questions on. So we really do try to focus on the ones that we can handle appropriately. And we also do find that people naturally congregate to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So those are the ones we handle first and foremost. I know a lot of people, in thinking about how many handles a company should have, to me that's such a wide, it's a variety of decisions based on each company. We tend to do it by country, so we have StubHub Canada, StubHub US, StubHub UK. We do have a customer service one. We have one customer service handle, but I've seen other companies that have tons of handles. So I think it all kind of depends on each company's preference and what they're able to handle.
Excellent. Yeah, that's. I think it's important for teams to recognize some of the things that certainly Mary is underscoring the importance of here. Having things written down, having clear policies, having training, agent empowerment, these kinds of things. And whether you have 2 agents or 200 or 2,000, right? these sorts of things obviously not only can be done, but it's important that you that you do these. One quick note. Again, if you have questions, send those in to via Twitter using CSMY, Corporate Social Media New York, CSMY hashtag, or you can post them directly in the chat window. I've got a few more questions sitting here that I'm going to jump to in just a second. And then also, just so that everybody knows, the webinar is being recorded, and recordings will be made available. If you registered for it, you'll get information on when and how you can pick up that recording, and obviously share it with other people. One of the questions that's coming in there's a couple that I can kind of group together around metrics and impact to the organization. Mary, can you talk about the kinds of metrics that you find critical? Response rate, average agent response time, how you measure these things, how you monitor these things, customer satisfaction, the things that you find important, and then maybe if you have some actual examples or things that you can share. And again, don't share confidential information, but if you can give us some directional indication on this. And then, given that you have those metrics, the metrics that you feel are important, how do you use those within your organization, and what's the impact that you see both of having the metrics and being able to have that conversation, the quantitative conversation, as well as given the metrics and the way that you can then guide and tune your team and evolve and and sort of remain flexible, what's the overall impact to the organization?
Sure. So the main metrics that the team focuses on for their goaling would be volume, of course, volume. Time to response. Our time to respond is within 6 to 10 minutes for each incoming post. Quality. So internal, we have an internal quality team that scores our team each month on a certain number of instances. We also do calibration to make sure that we're all calibrated on what's being scored. NPS, of course, so our customer satisfaction. That ties in along with sentiment as well. I do sentiment and NPS surveys, and then really just the behaviors of the team. That's more of, how do I feel they're showing up every day? And what I do with those is, obviously, it's going for the team and engaging them and making sure that they're meeting all their metrics. But what I take away is, to my executive level team, my leadership team, this gets me headcount. This gets me executive support where I can show them that this is the difference the team is making. This is how much we've grown. This is how much we're deflecting calls into social out of our center, which is saving us money. So things like that, I take all of those metrics and keep track and engage my upper leadership team to get more and more support for the next things we want to keep doing. So next phase for us is community. It took a lot of work for us to say, okay, it's time for us to build community now and really focus on pushing as much as we can. We would love to see 50% of our calls deflected to community first or to social first for our fans to be able to have their questions answered there.
Excellent. I think one of the things that we had one question come in while you were talking about justifying the spend that's required to do these things and so on. I think you just answered that one really well. Another question that came in. So in addition to your immediate team, who in your organization do you also interface with outside of customer care, outside of marketing, in order to create successful programs like this?
Sure. I think PR is super important. I think a lot of people put a lot of weight on marketing as being the most important. I disagree. I think PR and social being aligned is the most important team that can be aligned. We protect each other. We protect the brand voice. And when we see something, we're the first people that see something coming through. We then help PR be the voice to the media. And I think that's super important. Marketing, of course, is important for us to be aligned with. I think tech is very important to be aligned with. We see everything first in social. So we are the team that everybody else looks to to know what's happening in the world. Tech looks to us to know when the site's down. We have a different team that looks to us to know when events are postponed. You know, they have other methods to find this information, but you always tend to see it on social first. When a customer comments, oh, the game's postponed tonight, or the actual artists themselves post and say, I'm so sorry, but I can't do my show tonight. We know these things, we find them, and we align with those teams to make sure we deliver them the information as soon as possible.
Excellent. One last in this sort of organizational question, and the reason that I'm asking this is my experience certainly is the most difficult part of building an effective social media engagement program through customer care and and these kinds of things. I think organizations sort of inherently understand Facebook is an advertising channel. So we should be there advertising. The social web is a place where people can see things, so we should be pushing content, publishing campaigns, and so on. I think we kind of inherently get that, both from use of it as well as from the fact that media is in the name, right? It's social media, right? So with our other media programs, we should probably be participating. But the things that you're touching on, and going back to my sort of original question on this definition of engagement, this notion that the brand is actually, StubHub is actually opening itself up to customer inquiry, customer, observation, collaboration with customers. You talked about the $7 Super Bowl ticket. I mean, clearly you didn't just say, oh yeah, that was a typo. Just send us the other, 37.9, and we're good. There was a lot more to that conversation than that. And so the question that I have along this organizational line, because I think this is often the most difficult piece of this. It's not the technology, it's not the budgets and things like that. It's how do we get the rest of the organization, or just our entire organization? How do we really get our organization to recognize we are opening up, we are becoming collaborative, we're becoming part of the fan experience rather than just this, sort of at a distance purveyor of some tickets or whatever. It's a much deeper relationship than this. How did you get executives to sort of go along with that and agree to, hey, if we open up our business in this way, aren't we really exposing ourselves? And don't we have a phone center and some other technology that we can use where somebody has an issue, we can just kind of resolve it, but we can do this without the risk of opening ourselves up. How did you get executives across that hurdle?
Sure. It was a hard one. So I did a couple of things. A few years back, it was more of the mentality of, well, we don't want to air our dirty laundry, kind of keep things, we want to fix problems and not have to put out publicly. And it was a lot of coaching around, it's okay to do that. It's okay to show people, look, there's an issue here, we fixed it. Or, look, you can trust us because we are going to take care of any problem there is. And it's not always a problem. A lot of times, customers are wrong, and now we have customers that will come to our defense to tell people, no, StubHub doesn't do that. You just need to reach out and they'll fix this problem. But what I did specifically was a couple of things. I utilized executive dashboards that I had posted in our Salt Lake City, East Granby, and San Francisco office that shows the continual flow of our tweets and comments and what we're posting and what are coming in, so that it's in their face and they can see it every day and see what people are talking about on social. That got them very excited. They wanted to see it. They wanted, oh, look, there's a big, on sale today going on. Look at everybody's talking about it. It gave them the feeling of they knew right away, too, when something was happening, and they really liked that. And then they were also able to see how we handled things. And they were able to see that we're able to turn those conversations around. We're able to turn negative conversations into positive conversations. We're able to control those channels in such a way that keeps the company safe. And a lot of time was spent in just constantly pushing things up to them, constantly making them aware of what other companies are doing, how we want to be a leader, we want to be on the forefront. We need to be out there doing social because we're a marketplace. What we do in business is social in itself, and we bring live experiences to people. Why would we not be talking about that? So it was just a lot of discussion and, quite frankly, a lot of push from me, just over and over again, like, I'm not going to give it up, we're going to do this, and really just showing them that this can be such a positive and successful thing. And yes, will there be negative days? There absolutely will be, but that's anywhere. But putting ourselves out there socially, put your brand out there. People come to you first because they know who you are. And I think that that's super important. But it did take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think that's what an amazing summary, and I hope people really appreciate the work that has to be done to sort of bring the organization along, so that as you go from publishing on the social web to engaging on the social web to tapping the passion and domain subject matter expertise of the entire organization. Clearly, if I had a question about how to purchase tickets or how to go see an event or what event to go see or where to sit in a certain place, if I had a friend who worked at StubHub, that's the first person I'd call, right? So when we think about that kind of expertise that exists inside the organization, when you become a collaborative organization, when executives get interested in things, when we start to recognize it's more than just another care channel, right? There are some fundamental differences here. You guys are clearly tapping into this. And I hope the people listening, participating in the webinar, really sort of appreciate and turn to your own organizations and look at this and say, how can we tap what's inside the company and actually use this to create these amazing customer experiences, regardless of what you do. One of the related questions that came in, I think it's very related to this. How do you build followers? How do you actually build a presence on the social web? And clearly, one of the things, and Mary, I think you did an amazing job talking about it, is you create talk-worthy fan experiences, talk-worthy customer experiences. You create the kinds of things that people want to talk about. And obviously the caveat here is in a positive way, right? We want people saying, hey, that doesn't sound right. You should contact StubHub. We want that kind of advocacy happening. We want people talking about, here's how I got these tickets. Here's how I attended this event. It was absolutely amazing. Here's what I did, right? We want those stories coming out because clearly that starts to direct people to your organization, both the organization itself, StubHub itself, as well as the social channels and things like that. And then on that point, one of the sort of housekeeping items that I always add when whenever I'm working with somebody is to simply say, look, are you telling your customers what to do? If I go to the customer care page on the website, is there a big, huge 1-800 call us right in the middle? And then down, the bottom someplace, even below the fold, there's a thing that says, or you can tweet us, right? I mean, if you want customers using the social channel, kind of reverse those two, right? Here's how to connect with us on social, because here are all the things that we can do, and here's some testimonials from fans, and you've got some great examples in your deck where fans have said really amazing things about the way in which they perceive the interaction on the social web. If you make those things front and center, right? If you put these things in statements, if when you're talking to customers you remind them, hey, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Don't call us. It's better if you use these other tools. Use our support community if you have those kinds of things. That absolutely helps in terms of building followers and that kind of thing. Mary, I'd love to get your quick take on asking fans to, or asking customers to like your page, to follow you on Twitter, to do these little favors for you, or tell other people to do this. I mean, do you guys feel like you've earned the right to sort of, you do something for somebody, can you ask them to do that, or do you feel like you're kind of like, I hope they don't mind, but we'll sort of ask them. Where do you draw that line? How do you know which one to do and not do?
Yeah, so we feel like it's in poor taste, right? So the only time we ask someone to follow us is if we need them to follow us because we have to direct message them to get personal information. But otherwise, when it comes to, okay, we fixed your problem, hey, can you give us a positive tweet back, or hey, can you follow us? We don't do that. We rely on the customer who is using social and kind of knows, it's socially acceptable. If a customer service, if customer service fixes your problem and you're happy, you give them a shout out. We rely on them to kind of know the social etiquette and do it on their own. If they don't, they don't, and that's totally okay. Sometimes what we will do, if we have an issue that's very, very large and it's a significant influencer and they don't say anything back, because usually the influencers will, but we need to kind of get in front of people that we have resolved the problem. After a little while, if that person has not stated, hey, thanks StubHub for fixing my problem, we will say, we'll mention them and say, so glad we were able to get this issue resolved. Just because we want to make sure that everyone following them understands that we didn't abandon them, we did fix their problem.
What an amazing note to conclude on. Nobody likes being abandoned. People want their things resolved. They want to know that they were heard and listened to, and things were taken care of. I think that leads right into sort of my final comment, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron. I think we live in a world where increasingly customers demand a lot. They're extreme in their expectations. They learn about crazy ideas from all kinds of crazy places, and then they expect us to be able to deliver this, right? Sort of instantly. But I think we also live in a place that says it's not so much that perfection is expected. I mean, we understand mistakes happen, right? Things go wrong. Stuff definitely happens. What we expect is a sort of a perfect recovery, if you will, rather than perfection. What we expect is perfection and recovery. In other words, if something happens, are you on my side to take care of this, right? Because that's what's going to make me a long-term customer. That's where I'm going to really get the advocacy across. It's when the little thing happens and you help me. That's this huge confidence builder in this relationship that we're starting to put together as a business and customer. And so this notion of perfection versus perfect recovery, I think becomes really, really, really important. And certainly the examples that you provided, the way that your team is set up, the kinds of things that you're doing, the policies and procedures, the technologies, things that you have in place, all of these are a testament to StubHub's commitment to not only delivering amazing customer experiences just straight up, but when the inevitable happens, you're actually prepared for it and you can respond in a reasonable way that helps build the brand. I want to remind people, recordings of the entire webinar will be available. Huge thank you, Mary. I know this is an hour out of your day, and for everybody who chose to join us, this is an hour out of your day. My hope is that you got something for this. You will be getting links to the recordings. I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron. We've got the Corporate Social Media Summit in New York City coming up. Aaron's going to tell you about that. And for my part and for Mary's part, thank you so much.
Oh, for sure. Thank you, David. Thanks, Dave, for that. That was a really great discussion. And it was great having so many real-world examples there, and I'm sure the audience would have found it interesting. As Dave mentioned then, we will be sending out the recordings very soon, within the next couple of days. So look out for those in your inbox and be sure to share with any of your colleagues that will find them useful. And also, as Dave mentioned, we are building up to the Corporate Social Media Summit, which is taking place in New York this June. Both Mary and the Lithium team are going to be joining us there, along with over 300 other social media leaders from some of America's biggest brands, which you can see on the screen now. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the best practices from those brands at the summit. There's actually an entire track devoted to social customer care. So if that's right in your wheelhouse, there should be lots of great examples there. I'll send out a link to kind of view more information on the event along with the recordings, as well as an exclusive discount code. So again, look out for that email. And I guess let's say one last thank you to Dave and Mary for sharing today's insights. And I hope you can all join us for another webinar soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.